I'd like to start the hearing by calling on the presentation from SRB Technologies, Inc., as outlined in Commission Member Document 15H15.1 and H5.1A and point B. I understand Mr. Levesque will make the presentation. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, President Bender and other members of the Commission. My name is Stefan Levesque. I'm the president for SRB Technologies, and I'll be making the presentation today. And I'm joined by our vice president, Ross Fitzpatrick, who will help me answer some questions, our manager of health physics and regulatory affairs, Jamie McDonald, our project engineer, Courtney St. Clair, and immediately behind me, Doug McNabb, independent consultant that we've retained. SRB Technologies has been in operation since 1990 and currently employs 46 people. We're located in an industrial park on the outskirts of Pembroke, and we lease 12,000 square feet of a building that's shared with 2 other tenants. The closest residence is approximately 250 meters from our facility. SRB is licensed by the CNSC to process tritium for the manufacturing of gaseous tritium light sources, which are glass capsules coated with luminescent powder and filled with tritium. The interaction between the particles emitted by the tritium and the luminescent coating produces light on a continuous basis. Our products ensure the safety and security of people all over the world. We're a supplier of aircraft signs for many aerospace manufacturers, including Boeing, Canadair, Beechcraft, and Learjet. We manufacture many vital products used by the Canadian and other NATO peacekeeping troops worldwide, including the U.S. military, and as you can see from the picture on Figure C, the UK Ministry of Defence, where you actually see Prince Harry using one of our products in deployment. Other lighting technologies require wiring, power, or batteries. Our lighting products do not use electricity, thereby reducing energy consumption. SRBT requests that the Commission renew our operating license for a period of 10 years. We're requesting a license with no new methods or processes, and we will be operating our existing equipment with the same trained staff. We request a license with the same license activities, the same release limits, the same action level, and the same possession limits. Our renewal request is based upon our positive compliance history and safety record. Our facility was operated safely throughout the current license. Our total air emissions were less than 18% of license limit. Our liquid emissions were less than 7% of license limit. The maximum dose to any of our workers in a given year was less than 2 millisieverts. The maximum dose to a member of the public in any year was less than 0.007 millisievert, which is less than 1% of the public dose limit. And we've only had 1 single lost time injury in the last license period. Our renewal request is based upon our stable and experienced workforce. 14 of the 15 staff that were employed in 2010 continue to work at the facility in the exact same positions. The other individual, the 15th one, has been appointed in a new position created called Compliance Manager that audits our processes and procedures on a continuous basis. Despite our growth, our workforce averages nearly 9 years of experience at the facility, and the average age is just over 40 years old. Members of our health physics team possess a combined 107 person years working at SRB, which approximately averages 15 years per the 7 members that we have in the health physics team. Myself, the president, and vice president, Ross Fitzpatrick, now own the company, have a combined 42 years of experience managing and operating the facility. Our renewal request is based upon our safety-related programs and processes. Programs and processes continue to undergo continuous review, improvement, and revision. Several new CNSC regulatory documents and CSA standards are being integrated in our management systems. Continuous improvement remains a key priority. Our renewal request is based upon the success of our emission reduction initiatives. Tritium production has increased approximately 4.5 times over the license term, but releases to atmosphere have risen at less than half the rate of production. Therefore, the ratio of tritium released versus processed continues to be driven down. Our renewal request is also based upon public perception. We've had very little concerns expressed over the current license period. Our public information program will ensure that regular public input is facilitated and considered in lieu of hearings. Regular meetings with all stakeholders will continue to take place as required, and will continue an open flow of information between parties. Our products are crucial to ensure the safety and security of people all over the world. Without our products, some companies would need to redesign their products at considerable cost. I would like to take this opportunity to ask you next time that you fly on a plane to look at the emergency doors, and specifically at the door handle or latch on the door. Imagine aerospace companies having to redesign, test, and requalify their emergency doors to take in other products. It would force the use of inferior lighting technologies requiring wiring, power, or batteries, resulting in lack of reliability, portability, and in some cases safety. Military, aerospace, and commercial organizations choose our products because they are safe, reliable, and highly effective. The sale of tritium light sources and products represent the sole source of revenue for SRB, including the after-sale service of taking back expired products. And contrary to comments in some of the interveners, the revenue associated with this practice in 2014 was 9% of our revenue and only 6% so far in 2015. A 10-year license term would allow resources to be focused on research to further reduce emissions, rather than to relicensing. You can imagine that the resources involved in relicensing for a small company like us. It will help us attract, hire, and retain highly qualified staff to support business growth and safety. Staff are more likely to join or stay at our facility when the future of the company is secure with a long-term license. It would assist us in securing long-term contracts with customers and suppliers. It would allow customers to design our products and their application for a long term. It would also allow suppliers to provide us beneficial terms for long-term supply contracts. It would allow us to support planning of facility improvements and dedication of a fixed part of our revenue to emission reduction initiatives. It would also increase access to financing for equipment and training. You can also understand how banks are more likely to give loans when the future of the company is secure with a long-term license, loans for emission reduction initiatives, equipment, or so on. Our management system is comprised of programs, procedures, and associated documents that are in place with the purpose of meeting the Nuclear Safety Control Act, regulations, and conditions of the license. SRB has analyzed several new or modernized standards and regulatory documents. Safety programs are continually improved to meet or exceed these evolving requirements, including CSA N292 on radioactive waste, CSA N393 on fire protection, Reg Doc 2.2.2 on personnel training, Reg Doc 2.10.1 on emergency preparedness, RDGD 210 for maintenance programs and nuclear power plants, RDGD 99.3 on public information and disclosure, CSA N294 on decommissioning, and lastly, CSA N286 on management system. Regarding this last standard, SRB has analyzed its current management system and established an action plan to become compliant with CSA N286. As an initial step, the SRBT Quality Manual, which governs and defines our key processes, management responsibilities, and accountabilities, was revised in September 2014 to reflect organizational improvements and to provide greater clarity. SRBT fully expects to meet the requirements of N286 by the end of 2016, and we continue to keep CNEC staff informed of our progress towards this goal. This is the organizational structure that's in place at the facility to meet the conditions of the license, the Nuclear Safety Control Act, and the regulations. Over the term of the current license, a number of organizational improvements have been made. In 2012, we've added an import and export specialist to support our import and export manager. We've hired a health and safety specialist with expertise in that specific area. We've hired a project engineer that worked at another CNSC licensed facility for over 2 years. We, as I discussed before, basically created a position, a compliance manager, an individual that audits the facility over the course of the year as a sole task. And they've worked at SRB in various capacities before that in management and in health physics for 16 years. In 2014, we also added a manager of health physics and regulatory affairs. This individual worked at SRBT for just over 5 years before moving to another CNSC licensed facility for 2 years and worked for the CNSC as an inspector conducting inspections for nearly 6 years in a wide variety of areas. In 2014, we also hired a full-time consultant that worked for the CNSC for over 30 years in various capacities. This individual was also intimately involved in the decommissioning of Shield Source. And in 2015, in April, we recently added a design engineer. Our organization includes committees which deal with specific areas affecting safety and that are instrumental in the development and refinement of programs and procedures. You can see in our written submission that we had as many as 91 committee meetings in 2014, and so far we've had 35 in 2015. In 2014, we also added 2 new committees, a production committee, and to help us implement Reg Doc 2.2.2 on SAT training, we've also instituted a new training committee. Various performance assessment improvements and management reviews take place at the facility. Throughout the term of our current license, CNSC staff conducted several compliance inspections, facility visits, and promotional visits. And I'm proud to say that as of today, all action opens have been addressed, so there's no open actions as a result of any of these inspections. We also have additional independent oversight. Annually, we have audits by our ISO 9001 Registrar BSI management system. We've always had internal audits, but now with the addition of the compliance manager, we're having even more frequent internal audits, and actually 18 are planned in 2015, covering all safety control areas. Over the license term, we've had 3 audits by Ontario Power Generation. We've had annual inspections by the Pembroke Fire Department. As required by our license, we also had annual inspections by the fire protection consultants. A number of our products are UL approved, or some would know as underwriter laboratories, and as a result of that, we have quarterly unannounced inspections by UL to make sure that the products are made to requirements. You can also understand that with the many aerospace and military companies that we supply, that we've had numerous customer audits as well. All and any issues identified during these inspections, much like the CNSC inspections, and audits are promptly addressed. We've always effectively trained our employees in all key aspects of our license activities and operation. As previously mentioned, Reg Doc 2.2.2 on personal training was published by the CNSC in August 2014. As a result, as briefly mentioned, we first appointed a new training committee to manage its transition to this new standard. We've then undertaken a comprehensive analysis of all our processes to determine the activities that would require to be trained systematically. We then developed a training program manual, which was accepted by CNSC staff in March 2015. The inaugural cycle of the training program is scheduled for completion by the end of 2016. We have other key training activities. Radiation protection training is being given to all new staff that we hire at the facility. That's whether they work in an area that handles nuclear substances or in the office. Any single member that first is hired at SRB takes radiation protection training. In addition to that, we have yearly radiation protection training that's mandatory for all staff, again, whether you're handling nuclear substances or not, and that even includes myself, the president and owner of the company. The Pembroke Fire Department performs yearly fire extinguisher training for all our staff. We do some fire responder training. We have an external company that basically trains our staff that are involved with shipping and receiving packages in TDG. We receive health physics training, and we do a lot of cross-training between the 7 members of our health physics team. And we have fire protection committee member training. We have 2 committee members that are actually volunteers for 2 different communities, and they receive extensive training as part of being volunteers. We've also received a lot of external training in health and safety. We've continued to safely operate our Class 1B nuclear facility throughout the term of the license period. We've added key expertise, as I discussed, in critical safety areas, and our programs and processes continue to evolve to meet regulatory requirements. We continuously analyze, report, and trend our operating performance. We submit quarterly reports to CNSC staff on environmental monitoring. We submit monthly reports, again, to CNSC staff on groundwater monitoring. We submit annual reports under our dosimetry license, and we meet all our reporting requirements on export and export licensing. And we also have an annual compliance report that's also submitted to CNSC staff each year. This annual compliance report is also posted on our website. The information used from this annual compliance report and that of others in our section, other facilities, is used by the CNSC to produce the annual report on the performance of Canadian uranium fuel cycle and processing facilities. And it's important that people know that members of the public have and can provide written comments at these yearly meetings that present this data. SRB will continue to be in attendance and be available to answer questions of the Commission during these meetings. In the future, we will also take the annual report and publish it on the SRB website. So not just our annual compliance report, but also the report of the CNSC, well in advance of these meetings for the public to obtain. The overall design basis of key structures, systems, and components relating to the facility and our license activities and relating to safety has not changed. Some component modifications have improved safety and reliability and reduced the environmental impact of our operations. Design modifications to key safety-related equipment have been implemented in a controlled fashion, including risk assessment, commissioning and testing plans, and consideration of training. Structures, systems, and components are maintained fit for service. And during the term of the current license, there were no significant equipment failures that presented a safety issue. Ventilation systems were maintained fully operational. Staff flow performance was independently verified annually against design requirements. Liquid scintillation counters were maintained annually, and 2 new units were purchased, installed, and commissioned. We've added 5 new portable tritium in-air monitors, and 1 of which is kept at the Pembroke Fire Department. We've increased the number of stationary monitors by 2, 1 in use and 1 is kept as a spare, and the weather station was maintained as required. SRBT took several actions as a result of the lessons learned at ShieldSource Incorporated, formerly our competitor. This is where ShieldSource was found to have issues monitoring their air emissions. As a result of these findings, SRB is elected to increase the frequency of stack monitoring verification from every 2 years to every year. We've invested a considerable amount of money upgrading and modernizing our equipment that had been purchased in 2005 and 6 that's associated with stack monitoring by purchasing and installing new bubblers, new tritium monitors for real-time emissions monitoring, a new digital data recorder to complement the existing analog paper chart recorder that we had. The annual dose to our workers has been less than the regulatory limit of 50 millisieverts, and actually less than 1 millisievert in 2010 and 12. You can see the highest is in 2013 at 1.93, with the highest average as 0.25, and again, well below the limit of 50 millisieverts. The maximum dose to a member of the public is also well below the regulatory limit of 1 millisievert. The highest over the license period was in 2013 and stands at 0.0068 millisievert compared to the limit of 1 millisievert, which actually represent less than 1% of the public dose limit. Our lost time incidents over the license period, we've only had 1 of them, as you can see, in 2011, and it was in an area where no radiological activities took place. We continue to implement improvement to ensure safety. Over 30% of our employees are trained in emergency first aid and are trained to use the automatic electronic defibrillators. The annual emissions of HTO, which is tritium oxide, and tritium gas were maintained at less than 18% of the license limit. And this, let me remind you, are despite increasing production over license term by 4.5 times. The annual emissions of HTO, which is the greatest contributor to public dose, were also maintained less than 27% of the license limit, and again, despite increasing production by 4.5 times. If you can look at table E briefly, you can see the numbers on the amount of tritium that we processed against what we released over the license period, and what we actually look at to see how well we're doing in reducing emission. We look at the release to process ratio, and you can see that that's over the term of the license has gone down. And if I look at it specifically on table F, you can see that where it stands at 0.23 in 2014, in 2010 and 11 it was 0.55 and 0.76. SRB has been successful in reducing this ratio over the last several years. It was actually 1.7% in 2008. So what that means, in 2008 we were releasing 1.7% of everything we were processing, down to now 0.23, so less than 0.25% in 2014. And I'm happy to say that although the presentation says 16 weeks, now 17 weeks running in 2015, the ratio now stands at 0.15. So we're looking so far at another reduction this year. This ratio is an excellent indicator of the overall effectiveness of our emission reduction initiatives. Throughout the term of the existing license, our liquid emissions were also maintained well below the license limit at less than 7% of the action license limit, the highest being actually 6.5%. We've had a groundwater monitoring program in place since 2006 that includes a sampling by a third party of 46 wells. The highest average concentration in one of the residential wells that we monitor in 2014 was 217 becquerels per liter and continues to trend downward. The concentration is well below the Ontario Drinking Water Guideline value of 7,000. Of the 34 monitoring wells, at the end of 2014, only 2 wells exceeded the Ontario Drinking Water Guideline value. 8 wells, as a comparison, exceeded this guideline in 2007, compared to 2 now. Both of these wells are located on site within 50 meters of the stack. Actually, one's directly at the stack. The concentrations are expected to gradually decrease with decay, hydrological processes, and dilution due to rain. And we will continue to not do any tritium processing operations during precipitation events as a means of further protecting groundwater. An independent third party also collects and analyzes samples as dictated by SRB's environmental monitoring program. We have 40 air monitoring stations that are located within 2 kilometers of the facility. We had 8 precipitation monitors that are located between 250 and 500 meters from the facility. Third party takes produce sampling from both local gardens and the local market. Local milk is sampled on a quarterly basis. Local wine is sampled at a brew your own place next to our facility. And the Muskrat River, which is located a few hundred meters from the facility, is sampled on a monthly basis unless frozen. And the concentrations are always near detection level. All this data is used to calculate what I reported earlier, the maximum dose to a member of the public as a result of the emissions from SRB. And when I relate to maximum is we assume, in calculating this dose, we assume that an individual works right next door to our facility and breathes that air, and lives right in the neighborhood, right closest to SRB and breathes that air, and doesn't go anywhere else between other than work and home. We assume that they consume only vegetables from the highest local garden that we've sampled in the local market. And we assume, although Pembroke is on municipal city water, that they use a well that has a concentration that we've discussed. So it's all worst case scenarios, and it still gives you a dose of 0.0068 at maximum. So again, less than 1% of the public dose limit. On fire protection, our fire protection committee meets at least every quarter. Our program was revised 3 times during the license term, and we performed a gap analysis against the new CSA N393 standard on fire protection for facilities that process, handle, store nuclear substances. And we've developed an action plan that was accepted by CNSC staff, and the new program will be submitted in July 2015. We perform quarterly maintenance of the facility sprinkler system, and we perform monthly fire protection equipment inspections. We've had at least 5 fire drills each year during the current license term. SRB has developed, implemented, and maintained an emergency plan. The emergency plan was revised twice during the license term and once as a result of the lessons learned from the disaster of Fukuyama. We then performed a gap analysis between our emergency plan and the new Reg Doc 2.10.1 on nuclear emergency preparedness and response. We submitted an action plan which was accepted by CNSC staff, with a revision of the emergency plan which will be completed by September 2015. SRB also conducted a full-scale emergency training exercise on February 9, 2015. It was conducted in concert with the Pembroke Fire Department, the City of Pembroke, and was observed by several CNSC staff. During this exercise, we simulated an emergency situation in Zone 2, where tritium light sources are installed and safety signs and devices. The response was deemed acceptable, with all regulatory requirements being met. SRB identified only improvement opportunities, but no safety concern. The latest revision of our waste management program was accepted by CNSC staff on March 3, 2015. We've expanded the procedures set focus on processes outlined in CSA N292. Between 2010 and 2014, SRB made 23 low-level waste consignments to licensed waste management facilities. I'd like to clarify at this point some of the concerns voiced by interveners. Any expired light source that we have is sent to a licensed waste facility and not to landfill. So that's any expired light source. All waste shipments are also reported as part of our annual compliance report. And again, waste is not stored at SRB Technologies. Waste is only temporarily stored in our waste room, which is a small room that's about 7 feet by 6, and waste is shipped from it every couple of months. Our Waste Management Committee is focused on reducing all type of facility waste generation. We've had no security-related events throughout the current license term. SRB continues to maintain a security program in accordance with the regulatory requirements and expectations. We've had several security enhancements and upgrades to improve the nuclear security that were made over the license period. Maintenance of the security system is performed by an independent third party at least every 6 months, and all and any minor issues that have been identified during physical security inspections by CNSC staff are promptly addressed. In addition to tritium processing, SRB possesses, uses, stores, and manages an extremely small quantity of depleted uranium. We presently have less than 6 kilograms on site, with approximately 3.3 kilograms in loose form, where the balance of it is being used in our containers that store and dispense tritium and our gas lights. We're required to obtain import and export licenses for international shipments. All requirements relating to import and export licenses continue to be met. Regarding our import licenses, we have to report at the end of each license, except for the USA where we do it on a yearly basis, all the imports to the CNSC. Regarding export, we're required also yearly, or depending on the license, at the end of the license, to report all the exports associated. In 2014, 1,122 shipments of product were made to 19 countries. Approximately 90% of our shipments are destined for customers in Canada or the US. No transport incidents involving our packages have occurred over the license term, and SRB continues to comply with all requirements. Due to the comments expressed by a number of interveners in the submissions, we will include all import and export of tritium by country in future annual compliance reports. And this information will be posted on our website. So again, any import that we do on export will be reported by country in future annual compliance report on a yearly basis. Plant tours have proven to be a useful tool to reach the public. 98 plant tours were conducted between 2011, when we started tracking them, and the end of 2014. And so far, we actually had 30 tours in 2015. Up until the end of 2014, we only received 2 inquiries from members of the public during the current license term. Information pamphlet and license renewal information was sent to various stakeholders, including those living within 500 meters of the facility. As a result, we've had very to little no concerns expressed. We've also sent the same information pamphlet, which I have here today, and I can make available for the public or members of the commission, to 10,000 residences. 10,000 residents. Oh. Hello? Okay, excuse me. We've sent the same information pamphlet later to 10,000 residences and businesses and establishments in Pembroke and neighboring Laurentian Valley. As a result of sending these 10,000 pamphlets, we received one email with questions which we responded to. We've also performed door-to-door campaign of 369 residences within 4 kilometers of our facility. 7 individuals that were at home expressed very little to no concern. We can also provide any information to any members of the public, including the recent interventions that we received, even if they don't live in our local community. I just need to be provided their contact details, or they can request it and we can send it to them. Our revised public information program was made to address comments received by CNSC staff and to reflect requirements of RDGD 99.3. In October 2014, staff approved this public information program and deemed it fully satisfactory. We have a public information committee that manages the program throughout the term of the current license. Meetings are held quarterly to discuss public opinion, media coverage, and discuss public information program and public disclosure protocol. The former mayor of Pembroke, who served Pembroke for 18 years, including 3 terms as mayor and 2 terms as deputy mayor, is now employed by SRB and is now a member of this committee. We also recently invited members of the Concerned Citizens of Renfrew County and the First 6 Years organization, when they took part in a tour at our facility, to be part of our committee, and I understand that Ms. O'Grady from the First 6 Years will take part. Our website was frequently updated throughout the current license term. We recently completely redesigned our site, and if I can draw your attention to figure K on the screen now, you can see that there's a tab where public notifications, that's marked in red, where information is regularly posted. This includes information like my presentation today, our written submissions, our license application, and actually we posted the CNSC submission. We also have an area where we post a license and license condition handbook. We post all our annual compliance reports or addendums. We post our monitoring results. We provide details or presentations like I do to City Hall. And we provide information on tritium and radiation. We also recently added an area to provide information in emergency preparedness. So for example, the report that was divided as a result of the exercise is now linkable and obtainable on the website. We also have a number of public involvement initiatives and community support that we post on there. You'll see at the bottom right of the picture that our Facebook page was recently developed and linked to the website. We first started using it to notify members of the public of the emergency exercise, but now we're using it for other things. SRBT complied with the repayment schedule stipulated in our current license regarding cost recovery. The final payment and cost adjustment was paid on September 25th, 2013. Regular payments are now made, and SRB is in full compliance with the cost recovery fee regulations. We have a CNSC approved financial guarantee, which was approved on June 26, 2008, based on the previous revision of our PDP preliminary decommissioning plan. The final installment was made in April 2014, which brought an account held in escrow to just over $550,000 and continues to build interest. SRB has no access to these funds. It's only the escrow agent and the CNSC that would be able to get the money. Following the closure of Shield Source and their decommissioning, SRB actually hired the contractors that were directly involved with decommissioning the Shield Source, RadSafe and Mr. McNabb here today. With the information, we revised our PDP, our plan, in late 2014 to make sure we had any activities that we hadn't thought of in the original one based on what was found at Shield Source. It now requires us to increase the financial guarantee by just over $102,000, for a total of just over $652,000. We propose, as part of this license, to have 6 equal payments of $17,000 to be made every 6 months to the existing escrow account beginning in October 2015. On our future outlook, we're committed to product development in safety applications only, where we use our products with a focus on contributing to the safety of people in situations where reliable illumination is needed. We're committed to no less than 5% of our annual profit over our new license term to researching and implementing emission reduction strategies and technologies. We're committed to integration with scientific and nuclear community to advance education, emission reduction, and environmental monitoring initiatives. And we're also committed to the reduction of occupational doses, strive to lower the dose to all our workers well below the public dose limit of 1 millisievert. In conclusion, throughout the term of the current license, SRBT has operated the facility safely and in accordance with the provisions of the License and Nuclear Safety Control Act and regulations. SRB has demonstrated its commitment and integrity by the work described in this submission. SRB has demonstrated that it will continue to make improvements in the future by the various initiatives, goals, and targets described in this submission, and based on input and concerns raised by the CNSC, members of the public, and our employees. We therefore believe that under Section 24(4) of the Nuclear Safety Control Act, SRBT is qualified to carry on the activity for which it has applied, and will, in carrying on that activity, make adequate provisions for the protection of the environment, the health and safety of persons, and the maintenance of national security, and measures required to implement international obligations to which Canada has agreed. Thank you very much.
Mr. Lévesque, if you can provide a copy of the pamphlet to Madame Levert so it can be part of the record. Thank you.
Stephen Levesque for the record? Okay.
Thank you.